Is there a motion to reconvene?
So, the motion to reconvene?
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. We were just in executive session, and we have voted to execute a memorandum of understanding with NextGrid Corporation. Just to make it official, I think the board should reaffirm it in open session. So is there a motion?
Motion,
It's just a motion to enter into a memorandum. Yeah.
motion to enter into a memorandum of agreement between the town of Bourne and through the Board of Selectmen and NextGrid Corporation.
Is there a second?
Seconded?
Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. And Tony can go into, if you want to explain further what this is, or do you think that's enough at this point?
I can. I'll be brief. So we were approached probably about 9 months ago from NextGrid Corporation, which is a solar developer, about partnering with the town on what's called a public entity project, which is fairly new, and essentially would result in the gift of quite a bit of property to the town, assuming it's approved by town meeting in the fall. Most of that land, about 30 acres, would be the actual solar array. There would be another parcel, about 4 acres, that would be gifted to the town for any municipal purpose. And then approximately 10 to 14 acres of property just north of where the solar array is would be gifted to the town under a conservation restriction in perpetuity, which would also provide some additional benefits to the town, given the sensitivity of the water resource area in that general part of town. So in return for that, the town would receive a $500,000 initial deposit at commercial operation of the facility. We would also be getting approximately $160,000 a year over 25 years as a pilot payment in lieu of taxes, which would amount to a little over $1.18 million. And then we would also get annual lease payments over the course of the next 25 years, which would add up to another $4 million of benefit to the town. So all in, the project benefit to the town over the 25-year expected life is about $6.3 million to the town, and helps to further our initiatives about going out and looking for sustainable recurring sources of revenue outside of our normal tax base and other funding that comes into the town to help us fund investments in our strategic plan. So we're really excited about the project. We still have a lot of work to do, and obviously town meeting plays a role in this, in the acceptance of the gift of land. So we look forward to working over the next few months with NextGrid and being ready to present this project to town meeting come November 15th. So.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next item, which is moment of silence in recognition for our troops and our public safety personnel, I'm going to take a few minutes to recognize the passing of Linda Zerma, former select board member who served in the town of Bourne for many years. Linda not only has served in the Board of Selectmen, but she also served in the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Bourne Youth Task Force, which was my first board in 1995, and Historical Commission, Library Trustee, and the list can go on. She was also elected to the county as our Assembly delegate. It's not easy, when you have someone that's been very involved in the town. But unfortunately, she did pass a COVID. But take the politics out of it. She did do a lot for this community, and she wasn't afraid to, to speak her opinion. She also was an educator. She also was a tutor here in town, and also was on the school committee. So she had an educational background, and so not only was she involved in most of that, but she was also involved as educational. And the third thing is she was very involved in her faith, because her father was a pastor. Her father and Judy's father went to school together way back. And
A couple years ago.
Linda and my mother go back many years. My mother grew up in Quincy Point, so I've known Linda a very long time. But I just wanted to say, and sorry that she passed on. I may not agree with her politics, but she was a human being, a good person, and I think she will be missed I don't know if anybody else on the board has anything to say or wants to say something, or the staff.
No, I think just, although I didn't know her well, and I didn't really have an opportunity to work with her when I came to town, obviously COVID put a pretty big damper on her ability to interact with folks, but certainly somebody that was a dedicated public servant to the town in a number of capacities, and certainly I think somebody, in just reading other people's accounts, someone that really had a lot of energy, passion, was always respectful in talking about issues, both at the town level, but also at the county level, where you're in a mix with a large group of people from very different parts of the Cape trying to accomplish, common county goals. So I think her desire to continue to serve is sort of, something that a lot of folks in town can, look up to and try to emulate, that are volunteers and how they do things. So certainly somebody that will be missed greatly across the Cape, really.
Thank you. So with that, if no one else has anything else to offer or say, then we'll stand for a moment of silence, please, for our troops and public safety personnel, as well as Linda's zone. And the flag is to our right. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Who would see? MJ, will you read the vision, please?
Sure. Bourne is a proud community that embraces change while respecting the rich heritage of the town and its villages. It is a municipality based on a strong fiscal government with a durable economy that recognizes the rights of all citizens, respects the environment, especially the coastal areas of the community, and the amenities that it affords. Bourne embraces excellent education and offers to citizens a healthy, active lifestyle.
Thank you. And George, can you please do the mission?
Thank you. Bourne will maximize opportunities for social and economic development while retaining an attractive, sustainable, and secure coastline and environment for the enjoyment of residents and visitors. Through responsible and professional leadership and in partnership with others, Bourne will strive to improve the quality of life for all residents living and working in the larger community.
Thank you, George. There are no minutes this evening. Public comments, or any public comment? Seeing none. The first thing on the agenda will be 8A licenses and appointment, a recycling committee presentation. And Heather DePaulo, our chair, is here with Gene Hills and Phil Goddard. I don't see any other members here present, so Ms. Heather, the floor is yours. You please come up to the podium, introduce yourself, and it's your presentations.
Hello. Good evening. It's so great to be here amongst people and not on a Zoom screen. This is really exciting. The last time that we gave you guys kind of an update about what the recycling committee has been doing was August of 19, and that just is a world away. So we have been meeting Zoom since April of 2020, and one of the things that's a standing agenda item is our recycling numbers. So we talk about what's going on with the landfill, the single stream recycling at the curb, and the textile bins that are at the schools. So we're holding steady as far as our curbside recycling, which is great. People are still consciously putting things at the curb. Of course, we always look for clean, recycling, but Jean's going to talk a little bit about that later. So our textile bins were something that we did, I think it might have been 2016. We helped get those from Bay State Textiles, and they're at every single school, so you can drop off your clean, dry, recyclable textiles at the schools. It's all 4 schools plus Upper Cape Tech, and now they have one on the base. So over the last 3 months alone, 18,725 pounds of textiles have not gone into the landfill. So that's pretty exciting. And on top of that, just last month, in June, the Bourne PTA got $218.25 for doing nothing but giving up one parking spot. So pretty cool. I know my mom moved after 43 years, and I filled those bins in December. So definitely come in handy when a lot of the places have been closed. So that's been going on. Also, we have a good partnership with DPW and ISWIM. We were able to meet the new superintendent, Sean Patterson, via Zoom. Also, hear about the new recycling quality control efforts that Jimmy Boyle is doing. We're really thrilled about that. We've been talking about just, again, trying to get the curbside recycling as clean as we can. And he's had a great program set up where he's going to be going around to help educate people that may not have put the right things in the barrels. And something I'm really proud of, in the beginning of the shutdown, you recall, these are essential workers, the DPW, ISWIM, they were not being treated so well. Just people were just frustrated home and whatnot. So the recycling committee took it upon ourselves to just kind of give them some notes of encouragement. We brought over some baked goods just to let them know that as a partnership, we were thinking about them, even though we weren't able to be having meetings in those buildings, but we were still definitely supporting them. We got some continuing education for the members of the recycling committee. The town sponsored us to go to the Mass Recycle virtual conference. They had one in October of 2020 as well as one in April of 2021. It's a great place for us to realize that we're not alone. Other people have the same mission and vision as us, and that Bourne is pretty out of bounds as far as like our processes. They found out we're from Bourne. Oh wow, you do paint, you do the mattress recycling. I mean, Phil Goddard actually spoke and presented at, I believe it was October or the October. Okay, at both, and it was just nice to have such a strong presentation there, and to know that we're doing a top-notch job in the residential recycling world. We'd like to try to work on being litter-free. We always have a spring cleanup, and we were able to do that this year, which we were thrilled about because last year, of course, was canceled. We did this year with the Mass Maritime Academy cadets. They worked here at Buzzards Bay Park, and then we were also at Monk's Park. We've done Monk's Park a number of times. It's really pretty clean now, and so we're ready to move on. So if anyone has any other neighborhoods that they know of, just reach out to us because we'll be doing another cleanup with Keep Massachusetts Beautiful in October, and that is a program where they try to have every single town clean up on the same day or within the same weekend. But, cleanups don't have to be a big hoopla thing. You can just, when you're out for your walk, take a bag, pick up nips and whatever you see along the way. It doesn't, you don't have to be, part of a big group to just help clean up your local neighborhood. And then we are in the schools. That's another thing we still are. We, prior to COVID, we did go in and talk to the fifth graders. We, just about basics of recycling, but also, gave them a video of the Pacific plastic island. It's pretty just sad to see, but just to make them aware that their plastic cups, their plastic, wrappers do go somewhere if they don't properly put them in the landfill. We live near a fragile environment, like your mission and vision statement talked about. We want to keep Bourne a place where we all enjoy. So with that, we're working with the curriculum director in the district, which is kind of exciting to see if we can have the 3 R's, reduce, recycle, and reuse part of the everyday curriculum that they have in the schools from kindergarten on up. Just establishing the basics of recycling and really focusing on that whole reduce and reuse portion. And that's not just for kids. We can all think about, do we really need this going out and buying things? So just beginning their good habits now and hoping that that carries forward as they live here in town. Now, Jean Hills is going to talk about what we're doing going forward. And then if you guys have questions, you can ask us at the end. And also Phil Goddard will be here to talk to represent iSwim.
Good evening. It's nice to see you all. And when we were reading the vision for Bourne, that really caught my attention. With excellent education and a healthy and active lifestyle. And basically, that's where, moving forward, that's what we're trying to do. One of our biggest problems here in Bourne is getting people to understand that we have a bylaw. We need to recycle. We have one of the best residential recycling centers in the state. But people need to be continually re-educated and how to properly recycle, how to put their carts out. That's one of the problems that the DPW is having. People need to properly put their carts out, facing out, 3 feet apart. We're automated now, so they don't have to get out of the truck if they're properly put there. Don't put them out on Sunday night if you're going home for the week. Ask a neighbor to put them out so that they don't sit out there for a Thursday or Friday collection. Also, the things that go in the cart, we have the placards that we've put out. It's on the top of your barrel, your cart. Basically, when in doubt, throw it out. Improper recycling is as bad as not recycling at all. So we've been going through a program where we have tried to get in touch with the summer people so that they know what's happening. Going to rental agents, giving out the cards so that people will know what our standards are and what they should put in the carts. We've done letters to the editor expressing our concerns and what we need to do. That's been in the Bourne Enterprise. We've had a public service announcement on Bourne Television. I don't know if everybody got to see Phil and me. I was the one in the cart, so didn't see me. On the town website, we have lots of information on that, and we'll keep working on that so that people can get their questions answered, or they can come to us and give a comment what they want to do. The other thing that we need to have people aware of is just what types of things they can take to the recycling center. I mean, we can take mattresses, we can take paint, fluorescent bulbs, button batteries, a bad one, a boat shrink wrap. I mean, we're fortunate that we have a place where we can take that. One of our other focuses is on litter, which I refer to as a visible, annoying, and unnecessary situation. And like Heather said, there's nothing simpler than going out with your little stick in a bag and picking up your own street. But people need to do that. We need to find areas that need help as far as organizing a cleanup. If someone has a street or their neighborhood, or they see something, other than MacArthur Boulevard, can't do that, but any of the streets that we can work on to help clean up. We had one of our meetings this winter. We had Alan Robinson, he's from the Falmouth Solid Waste Advisory and Litter Free Falmouth. He had some great ideas of just things that Falmouth is working on. It's good to have other towns and cities, mostly towns that have our type of government, to know what kind of areas they're working on and set examples for us. It's just encouraging, it's enlightening to see what a community can get together and what they can do. This fall, we're going to be the great part of the great Massachusetts cleanup, keep Massachusetts beautiful. We'd like to get a lot of people out, really a lot of people. And it doesn't have to be a specific area. Just go out there and do your street. Heather mentioned that we were talking about education in the schools, but it's not just the little people, though I have to admit the look on their faces when those 5th graders saw the plastic island floating in the Pacific was pretty good. But we need to let people know how to increase their recycling, to reduce the refuse that we're putting in, and to extend the life of our landfill. That's something we've got in Bourne we have to be extremely cognizant of. And we need to reduce pollution. It's not just Bourne, it's the whole world. So we'll be continuing to do public events, open houses at the recycling center. We'll be going into the schools. We've been doing before COVID, we did movie presentations at the library. Some of them are pretty revealing, and we found people were just like sat there with their mouths open. There are some areas that we need to work on. We'd like to encourage businesses, and especially restaurants, to do things that will cut down on pollution and refuse. Reusable containers, there are things that we need to look into, such as straws, nips, styrofoam, disposable packaging, utensils, things that they can do without causing a lot of economic stress, but just to help. One thing we need to get across tonight is we need more members. We're looking for people who are interested in saving the environment, one person at a time. Little steps, as Phil tells us, take baby steps. That makes things move forward. So we'd like to have people.
How many vacancies do you have?
Well, we'll take what. How many vacancies do you? One. Okay, one. But hey, if we had 2 people that wanted to be on recycling, we'll take them.
Job share.
So this is basically, where we're going forward. We look forward to working with the DPW and ISWIM to carry out their policies and keeping Bourne safe and clean, just like our vision statement says. Thank you. And any questions, we'll be glad to.
Can I just, yes, through the chair, just 2 quick ones. When you say clean recycling, I don't think a lot of people understand what that exactly is by clean recycling in our bins. And the other one is textiles. Can we break that down a little bit more so that people understand what they can take over to those dumpsters at the schools?
Okay.
Just those 2 things.
Okay, textiles is basically fabric. It can be cushions, it can be draperies, clothing. They find that, I think it's 40 sheets, towels, and it's broken down into what is reusable. Some of the clothing is actually reusable, and it may be exported out of the country. Some of it is broken down into rags, and some of it is just broken down into fibers. So because if they can break it down into fibers and not have to make new fibers, there you go. We've cut down on manufacturing and production. As far as clean recycling, I think Phil is probably the best person to, because he's the one that's going to tell you that your load of recycling is not any good. So I will let him address that. It's easy, though. It really is easy.
Good evening, everybody. Phil Goddard, work for the Department of Integrated Solid Waste Management. It's a pleasure to be here. And want to thank the Recycling Committee under Heather's leadership. And we have a great partnership with the DPW, ISWIM, and the Recycling Committee for many, many years. It's been a pleasure. They support us. They get the word out there. We've had a lot of fun over the years making the commercial, for example. It's on the BTV website. And I will point folks for more details to the Town of Bourne Integrated Solid Waste Management website. There's a whole Recycling in Bourne website with lots of information, including details on textiles, what we mean. Everything from sneakers to bedding to clothing. It just needs to be dry, not contaminated with mold or things like that. Think about people handling it. And it's more than you would think. So there's a whole list that the DEP has a link that I've put up there for recycling for textiles. With quality control, one big thing is don't bag your recyclables. It may seem like you're helping us, but that only means that we can't get them when it goes to the recycling facility where they break it open. They're not going to break it open. It goes into the trash because they have all the machine needs to sort through all that. So we've got signs at the recycling center. You might see where you put it in the stream, which is everything in one. Don't bag your recyclables. So clean means empty of all food. Give it a quick that's what I like clean. Clean also meaning don't put things in there don't belong. A plastic garden hose is plastic, but it's not plastic for recycling at the curb. A bowling ball. These are things that are real-world items that are found at recycling facilities put in recycling carts. Diapers, food waste. So keep it simple. If you're in doubt, throw it out. Don't worry about every little item. Milk cartons right now, for example, are recycled only at one facility. We also, again, have the Recycle Smart Mass link at the website that I mentioned. If you have a night, you could type it in and see what you're doing. Pizza boxes, though, the great pizza box debate is over. You can do that. It's heavily grease on the inside liner that up, but grease on the box, not a problem. Not a problem. I'm here to let you know also that support the DPW in their efforts to help all of us collect better items at the curb. we've invested lots of dollars, iSwim dollars, Enterprise Fund, and recycling grant money that we get through the efforts of the staff at iSwim and DPW to spend on education. One item that's been confusing for people is that we have all yellow trucks, and they're interchangeable because sometimes the truck breaks down and we need to send a truck on a different route. It used to be back in the day we had a recycling vehicle, and it was clearly the recycling vehicle, but now we have a yellow truck picked up your trash and a yellow truck picked up your recycling, and that doesn't mean the recycling is going in the trash. I want to dispel that rumor. Does not happen. We have waste bans. We would have to get an exemption from the state and track that. We don't put them in the landfill. We don't want them in the landfill. It's confusing for the public, I understand. So what we did to solve that, we took grant money. We put magnetic signs that DPW can put on the recycling truck when it's used for recycling. I took a picture, I saw it today, and if you see the big white sign, it says purple letters for Bourne, recycle, it's recycling. It's not trash. And they will move it around to whatever truck they need. So hopefully that gets out to the audience and through the media. With the carts, you need to have the lid facing out. The cart, first of all, not up on the lawn, but out in the street prominently, not blocking traffic, but out on the curb, not away from the curb, but not up there so they can reach. The lid facing away from the curb, and I think it's 6 feet apart so that they can easily get in. The one driver can reach in with the arm, tip it in the little hopper, and then the hopper goes in the back without having to stop and get out, which defeats the purpose of having automated trash collection. So help us, help the DPW. They're looking at updating the policy to simplify it. That will be out on the website soon. So we ask for your cooperation also when you put items in the trash. Think about wind, think about tipping it. Don't put a lot of loose items in there, 500 nails and loosen the bottom. We want you to bag your trash, but not bag your recyclables. So think about nice, easily contained items so it doesn't blow all over the place, keeps the neighborhoods clean, and lots of big amounts of dust loose in the container is going to blow all over the place. Think about that when you put it in the trash. Of course, we're open 7 days a week in the summer at the recycling center. So if something happens in between collections, get a sticker, come on down to the residential recycling center, and we'll be able to accommodate it there. As I mentioned, we are applying for grant money. Town administrator authorized us to apply for that. We usually get about $16,000, $17,000 a year in real dollars to spend on certain items. And that's accumulated, so that comes out in things like educational materials, signs, and things like that. So Recycling Committee helps us get the points for that system. It's all working really well. We can always do better. And I can tell you the markets are coming back. China Sword has reoriented the world markets. There's a convention that 120 countries have agreed that exportation of plastics around the world has become an issue so that we can't export our plastics, except for Canada. We have a side agreement. So the markets are coming back. Cardboard's coming up. Scrap metal's coming up. It's looking better, but slowly coming back. So keep your eyes peeled for that. But I don't think it's going to be back to the days where we could expect big checks on a whole. Recycling does cost money. It does cost money for collection, and it is infrastructure. That's why you need to reduce and think twice about how much you consume. So those are the messages we want to say. DPW is doing a great job. They're busy, very busy this summer. Please help them, help you. We've invested in equipment on the trucks to help Jimmy Boyle, who's the foreman that goes out there and educates people, calls them up, we'll go out and visit you. If you're not following the rules, please follow the rules so you can help DPW, and again, at iSwim too. Dorothy's is open, long awaited. It's been open about a month, and it's very popular again, as we knew it would be. So thank you. Any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
So a couple of things. Thank you for all you do. I'm very proud of Bourne and our recycling and iSwim and all of that. The very first committee I was on when I moved to town was the recycling committee. I think I bring that up every time. It was a great way to meet people, and so, if somebody is looking for a way to get to know some people and also have a good cause, that's great. I know that DPW has not that Facebook is the be-all and end-all, but DPW has an active Facebook page, and maybe breaking down some of the information in little bites of information, because, yeah, the website is absolutely comprehensive and is really wonderful. But I just have one question, so anyways, I think that might be helpful. And then the third thing that I have to say is that while Dorothy's was closed, I got together with someone, and we actually have a Facebook page called Bourne by Nothing. So we're trying to help people get keep the stuff moving, not keep it out of the landfill. And so feel free to join in. There are about, I don't know, 1,500 or so.
Thank you
people
for
in.
mentioning that there are a lot of free cycle and a lot of Craigslist and things like that. Please, people are on, that reduces our coming to us, and people exchange behind the scenes. We want that. I think that's a great idea with the Facebook too. The DPW does that. They could put out little pictures. I'll mention that to the DPW. And certainly people looking to learn more and get involved, I encourage you to join the recycling committee. I've said this before, but my entire life changed because I joined the recycling committee as a founding member. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the recycling committee. So changed my life, and it could change yours in interesting ways too. You never know. So please volunteer. It's a great thing to do for your community, and I do recognize Linda Zern's volunteerism is an example for us all, how committed she was, and my condolences to her family. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bill.
Anybody have anything else to say? One thing maybe I'll ask you to have that doesn't get enough attention is recycling of food waste, or the education of reuse of food waste. I see a lot of people gets taken and they just throw it in the trash. When if it's roughage, you can do a compost pile. If it's like stale bread, you can make croutons out of it. If it's not rotten, you can take mashed potatoes, and you can make potato pancakes. I mean, there are things that you can do with the food. Broccoli, you can puree it and make broccoli soup. I mean, there's always well, that's why I'm so big. But I'm just saying this. I wonder. So I don't hear anything when it comes to food conservation and food. I just wonder if that's something that the committee could maybe look into, and maybe as part of an education piece, put that component in with it, because that would equal less trash going out, onto the curbside recycling.
Right, and I will say throughout the years we have partnered with, and I'm not sure exactly which program, but to offer compost bins at a reduced rate, that you could do some home composting. I got one of those years ago. It's lasted for quite a while. You can turn it, or just do what I do is just know that it's not going in the landfill, and every once in a while I empty it into the woods. But not a true composter, but at least it's not down my disposal. That's probably illegal, but but then also it's not going in the landfill. And so Jean does work quite a bit with the Valley Farm community garden, and they have excellent. Yep. There you go.
Yes. George and I, yes. Composting, it's something I have nagging Phil about. One of the conferences that we went to, what we do, that the town sends us to, we break down into different subjects. Nobody goes to the same thing. We do mattresses, we do paint. I did composting, my last one, and it was very interesting. There are some towns that have really amazing composting. Cambridge? Cambridge, yes.
Yeah.
However, and they do it municipally, but the one thing that, and I told them, I'm from Bourne and we don't compost, and they said, oh, like they always said, we're not worthy, you're from Bourne. I mean, it's just amazing the reaction that they have to that name. But but they said, what you really need to do, they said, listen carefully, because when you start composting, you need to have a dedicated person who handles that and who knows exactly what they're doing. It's a very tricky issue, but it's a great issue. But I think that's probably down the road. Phil can tell you better than I. But it is something we would like to do, but baby steps.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
Just something I brought up, and
Yeah.
maybe I opened up Pandora's box by doing
No,
it.
it's a good subject. It is a really good subject. We'd all benefit from it.
Sounds like you might have a Facebook page, though, for what to do with older food.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for bringing that up. I want to clarify for the audience, we do composting right now. It's just yard waste,
Yep.
brush, and all that. So we've been doing it for
Oh, yeah,
32 years.
forever.
What I think you're referring to is food waste
Yep.
composting.
Yes.
We encourage folks to purchase the earth machine that we offer and compost at home. As Gene alluded, adding food waste to our compost pile right now is something that we're pretty stretched thin right now with staff. So there are companies in neighboring towns that have bins or carts at the drop-off that would come and take it to a farm off Cape to compost on a larger scale. And Newton, for example, is a city that offers curbside collection through a third-party vendor to do that. Cambridge actually digests it. Hamilton. It's expensive to collect at the curb. Don't see that happening anytime soon, but I think next year when we have the staff available, we're considering what to do. But you have to make sure, as Gene alluded to, we don't want any odors. We got to make sure it's ready to go because people would have a demand for it. But there's lots of great movies online about the waste we have in this country. Food pantry certainly could use your donations for food. Go to humans first rather than the landfill. Absolutely. So
Thank you.
it's on the goals. Thank you.
Anybody else have anything? Seeing none, we're moving on.
Thank you.
Next thing on the agenda, and thank you, everyone, all for coming out this evening. Discussion and possible vote, Space State Equipment LLC, the Bobcat of Cape Cod Class 1 dealer's license. And so we have some people in the audience tonight that want to come and talk about this, so please come to the podium.
Good evening. Thanks for inviting us. I was told just to come. There's really nothing for us to share. We just purchased Bobcat of Bourne. We're in the process of rebranding to Bobcat of Cape Cod. That purchase was official June 1st. We currently own 2 dealerships in New Hampshire, Bobcat of New Hampshire as the brand, and we're expanding into Massachusetts.
Does anybody have any questions for this applicant? Because the roof strip was in that packet. Seeing none, is there a motion to approve this?
I'll make a motion.
Yep.
Motion to grant Bay State Equipment LLC, DBA Bobcat of Cape Cod, a Class 1 dealer's license for the business located at 170 MacArthur Boulevard.
Second.
Is a motion made and a second made? Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none from the staff? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Look
much.
forward to getting to know all you guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sorry you had to wait a little bit. Selectmen's business, vote to reluctantly accept the town administrator's letter of resignation. Mr. Chiavi, do you want to talk about this, or is this cut and dry at this point?
No, I mean, I submitted my letter back on June 8th. It's been, stamped at the town clerk's office. I don't really have anything else to add.
You can
per se.
retract it.
No, I don't have anything to add at this time.
Does the board have anything to say about this?
Yeah, I just, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did on occasion had the occasion a couple days ago to talk to Mr. Schiavi about this, and this is a real reluctance type thing. I just, would like to refuse his signature. If we were to move in that direction, it would be completely in the era of a compliment, not trying to undo something that you've intended to do. But I understand you've made up your mind, I think, but if there is any opening, I'm here with a crowbar. But that not being said, tried when you first gave your notice and just made a passing plea, but I went back again, and I think we had a wonderful discussion, because you are definitely an asset to the town, and it'll be very difficult. It's with real mixed feelings that I would push this forward, and I'm not pushing it. Thank you.
Judy?
I'm not sure the reason for voting the letter of resignation. It's the contract, and has been followed by the contract. I absolutely agree with George. I think that this is a great loss to our town. You've brought a tremendous amount, and I'd like to be able to have that continue, that momentum continue. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't really stop and reflect on what reasons, why, what can we do better to sustain that. We had 2 solid years of a board that, identified what we were looking for. We had a search that was an ambitious schedule, timeline, and all of that. And I think, it was a unanimous decision. It was probably one of the, toughest, longest days of my life, sitting in this room for 8 hours, going through the interviews and making those decisions. And tremendous amount of thought went into it. And, just before you hire someone, there is trepidation about, is this person going to really meet the expectations of what we're looking for? And over and over, absolutely met and exceeded. And we did we did reviews, and, I had the pleasure and honor to be able to work on a very regular basis as the chair. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of on the same line of, well, I mean, I've already tried to talk you into it a couple of times, into continuing, because I think, there really are some things to continue. But, I know you didn't make the decision lightly, and I think we need to take that seriously. So, anyway, I'm not in favor of voting one way or the other.
MJ?
I think Mr. Schiavi has done a tremendous amount for the town of Bourne. We have made a lot of progress in a lot of areas that we struggled with for many years, and I have to commend him for that. I am an executive recruiter, and I work with people who make career decisions all the time. And those decisions are tough for the individual, and they're tough for the employer or the company or whoever. And I think that when you have someone as strong and dedicated and thoughtful as Mr. Schiavi, who has made a personal decision, that you have to respect that, whether with regret or not. And if he's been approached to change his mind, and he said he hasn't changed his mind, then I think we have to respect his decision. My understanding is that you do need to accept the resignation, that it's part of the process. We've had other department heads or people that resigned and that step had to be taken. If it doesn't have to be taken and it's done, then you don't have to do it. But that was my understanding of the process, so sorry to see you go.
Jared?
I'm all set.
Okay. I mean, I have taken phone calls. I've had people speak to me in person. If it's not employees, it's members of the public that hold you in very high regard. I have not heard one negative thing from someone that has reached out to me about your attending here in the town of Bourne. It's it's been very amazing, you know, what we all, under your leadership, were able to accomplish. And personally, I think you're leaving too early. I think we still got work that needs to be done. I mean, they got department heads really who cried. And I said, I have no control over that. I said, but I will communicate your reasoning and, and everything. But it's not easy because, I mean, you came here with a specific, expectation, and I'm sorry that we were unable to meet that. But you're not going to leave here without, saying that you haven't made a difference. You have, in the short time that you were here, and I'll always be grateful for that. It's just going to make it that much harder for the next person to come in, to try to, be like you were in the short amount of time that you were here. It's like the day that whoever's going to replace Bill Belichick someday is going to have huge, things to, and it's very similar. But I wish you nothing but best, good luck in the future and whatever you want to do. And I'm sure this board will be behind you if they ever ask for any part, any recommendations or anything, because there'll be nothing negative coming out of my mouth. There is a member of the public that is here, Dave, that would like to speak.
I'm surprised that I'm getting involved in local goings-on in Bourne. My name's Dave Bergeson. I live at 27 Fieldwood Drive, Sagamore Beach. I've lived in Bourne going on 18 years. I like Bourne. I found it very enjoyable. I follow the newspapers. I read in the newspapers, the good, bad, and the ugly. Everything I've read about our town administrator has been positive. I know that the board's decision to hire him was unanimous. I know that his annual review was excellent. So as a curious individual, I say, what's going on here? Why does somebody who's only been here 20 months, why is he leaving? I took the time to meet with Tony because I was concerned. So I went and talked to him. He gave me some time to talk. I asked him why he was leaving. He said personal reasons. I respected that. I asked him to stay because as far as I knew, he was doing a great job. And he said he'd think about it. I expressed my concerns going forward because I'm a manager myself. I've managed businesses. I've owned my own business. I recognize talent when I see it. And my short visit with Tony was exceptional. There's no question in my mind he's qualified, and there's everything I've read says that he's done a good job. I haven't heard otherwise. I'm listening to the board talk tonight. I haven't heard one person say he hasn't done a good job. So he's leaving after 20 months. So he's made up his mind, I guess. I respect that. But it's a sad day for Bourne. You're not going to find anybody any better. So you better figure out what's going on, because your next candidate is going to come in and say, why did somebody so qualified leave after 20 months? You've got an issue here. You need to deal with it. I don't want to get in. I mean, I've talked to everybody on the board. I don't want to get into he said, she said. I'm not going there. But you really better reflect and learn what's going on and figure it out, because you can't turn this office into a revolving door. Tony, I wish you'd stay. I wish you'd change your mind. Bourne is very blessed to have you here, but it is what it is, and I'm sorry that it's ending this way. I'm a concerned taxpayer. I want Bourne to be prosperous. I want it to do well. I know that in reading the papers of the past, town administrator was always conflict, not good reviews, always an issues, had a hard time making him leave because of contract issues. There was no time limit on contracts based on what I learned. So now you get somebody that's good and they're leaving. So you got a problem, and I'm sorry.
Well,
No, but thank you for coming out.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
I'm one person trying to make it.
Thank you.
Make a-
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, David, for stepping forward, and I think there's a lot of people that have the same thing in their mind, but not always willing to step forward. I mean, it is slightly less than 20 months that Tony's been at the helm, and there has been a marked difference. But just parenthetically, Tony, I may embarrass you a little bit, but you were asked to step forward at Memorial Day, and I know at Veterans Day, and you had a wonderful delivery in full dress uniform right out in front of Town Hall, and it was a very nice speech, very moving speech, but very appropriate. And I think you know, the people in attendance really appreciated what you did, but you fill the bill doing that. That is kind of a bonus, because that wasn't why we hired you, but it just came. But also, the same person that did that kisses his grandchildren during a Zoom meeting, and it shows a totally different side of the man who is out there with the uniform. But anyway, if there's any way to reconsider, I realize we have this document in front of us, and I prefer not to act on it anyway because of that reason. But anyway, it's, you know, we hope that whatever happens, happens. And I think no matter what, we made the right decision when we hired you, and I will never second guess that. Thank you.
Maybe something that should be considered is an exit interview. I don't know if it's if it's appropriate, but where I came from in corporate industry, when someone left, we sat down and we did an exit interview so we know what was good, what was bad, and what we could do better. And I think this would be very important in this case. So if the board feels appropriate, if you feel it's appropriate, I think it's something we should be looking into, because I would like to know.
Okay, through the chair, we definitely need to have some open conversations. And you look at things systematically and, you know, make it stronger for moving forward. So whether it's an exit interview or as part of a workshop with the whole board, I feel like too much time has already gone by, and that we need to have these discussions, you know.
We will. Anybody else? Is there a motion?
Motion to do a,
No motion to accept his resignation.
I prefer to pass on it.
It was a request of the town clerk.
Yeah.
All right. You know,
What did the town clerk requested, that there be an action by the board to accept the resignation as,
yeah, it's just just formally, officially accept the resignation as submitted. It's one thing to stamp it in, but if you stamp it in, even if you don't affirm it, then technically you can go in the next day and submit another letter saying I'm pulling back my letter. And so the motion is just to affirm what he is submitting. That's all it is.
Acknowledging or affirm?
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yeah, if we have to acknowledge it, because it's sitting right here in front of us, the document, but, yeah.
That's the only reason I'm asking for a motion. It's just for process reasons. That's it.
Well, I would say we have a few more weeks.
Well, we're gonna be starting interviews soon, so, you know, not interviews, but you know what I mean. The next thing's gonna be, so we can table this, but it has been put out there.
I'll make a motion to table, and not to postpone the inevitable, if that's what it is, but I, you know, would like to have as much time as we can. If we have the time and we're not messing up with some sort of other deadline that I'm not aware of, and if it has to be acted on, and it should be acted on, so be it. But we could table it for this particular meeting. We will be meeting
We're meeting it many other times going
many.
forward.
Okay.
All right, then, so it's a motion to table this item. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay. We are now doing the workshop portion of this
Nope.
agenda.
Nope,
No,
9B.
money, money.
For the monetary donations. Vote to accept the 2 monetary donations made in memoriam to the Bourne Fire Department. Tony, you wanna?
So we had 2 donations that came into the Bourne Fire Department. The first from Laura and Bill Dunn of Forestdale, $25, and from, hold on. I'm sorry, that was a $50 donation, and then a $25 donation from Susan Rosa and Jane Lewis of Sandwich. Both were made in memory of Bourne resident Hugo Ferrari of Sagamore, recently passed away. Request that the board accept that donation. But also, you know, we get a lot of these small monetary ones, and obviously sometimes we get larger ones, you know, in the thousands. So it's been brought up to, you know, the department has, you know, the process here to come to the board. I said, well, can the town administrator get a vote from the board to be able to accept any donations below a certain dollar threshold? My feeling is we meet regularly enough, and, you know, waiting a couple of weeks to accept a donation, I think is fine. But just wanted the board to know that question had been asked to have me ask the board. But personally, I don't think it's necessary really to do that. And, you know, I think can, you know, highlight some of the donations publicly that folks make, whether it's the fire department, rec, you know, department, council on aging, I think is fine. So just in case you hear that out there, I think our process is defined at this point. So would request the board accept both donations on behalf of the Bourne Fire Department.
Mr. Chair? Yeah, I think that's important. I think it's important for us to recognize those folks that went out of their way, and typically it's with someone's passing, typically, not always. So I think it's important that we show the appreciation.
Right, I agree.
Any other? Seeing none, is there a motion to accept these donations?
Motion to accept a donation of $50 from Laura and Bill Dunn of Forestdale, and a $25 donation from Susan Rosa and Jane Lewis of Sandwich, made to the Bourne Fire Department in memory of Hugo Ferrari of Sagamore in lieu of flowers.
Second,
Any discussion?
If I just could, Mr. Chair, one thing I'd like to highlight is, here's 2 or 4 residents here from outside our town who are making a donation into our town. I think that speaks well for the fire department and the services that they provide. I think it is good to recognize them, because, I mean, and that was the first thing kind of jumped out at me. And these are residents from across Cape Cod who are, recognizing our town, so I think that's a good thing.
Anybody else? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, ayes have it. That now concludes the selectmen's business portion of the meeting. We'll be going into a workshop format, and as part of the workshop format, we're not gonna be taking any comments from the public, because it's just amongst us and the staff, the work ahead, so I just wanted to let you guys know that. You're more than welcome to stay and listen to us. But thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
So, the first thing on the workshop agenda for this evening is discussion related to the town administrator's transition plan. What I did put in the packet is the advertisement as well as the RFP that we used for the town administrator's search from the last time. The reason why I put this in here is, yes, if we are gonna use this format again, then the only thing we need to do is we need to update the information, because a lot of the stuff has dates going back from a couple of years ago. But also, this calendar and dates on there for milestones that will need to be changed as well. But I sent this out to you all so you could read through it, to see if we can go through this document and see what changes need to be made before we decide to go forward with this. The other thing to keep in mind too is we need to decide if we're gonna go ahead and having discussions for the intentional purpose of hiring an interim town administrator, or does this board feel sufficient enough that in the short term that Glenn can hold down the fort until we go through this interview process, and at which time we will take the recommendation of the search committee, and then interview the finalists, and then ultimately vote to support, to choose an applicant, and then through background check and successful negotiations. So, I mean, we have things on our plate that we need to discuss. So, I think probably the first thing first is let's get the interim off the table. And the reason why I say that is if this board feels that we are gonna go through with an interim town administrator, we need to start that process first. And then by doing that, then we have to look at it, we have to look at an RFP for an interim, then we gotta look at it, as far as a consultant just for that. And then, there is a process, so let's think about this, let's talk this out. How does the board feel about hiring an interim or elevating Glenn? And I will open up the discussion to the board as a whole. Who wants to go first? Yeah.
I think it's very important that we have an interim, that time frame with town meeting, all of the things that we currently have going on right after a pandemic. There's a lot still going on. And I do think it's very important that someone like Glenn, who has not only the experience, but the specific hands-on with a lot of those things, I think it's, I would be more inclined to put Glenn into that position based on the specific hands-on knowledge. And I think Glenn has more than proven himself as our assistant town administrator. He's very professional. Throughout staff, he creates good morale, and he has a good knowledge as well as background of the town of Bourne and everything that we're doing currently. His time on the Cape Cod Commission and everywhere else that he has been has become a very beneficial asset to the town of Bourne, and I think he brings an awful lot to the table.
Just make a comment. Is this Glenn as an interim we're talking about?
Or hire.
Or acting, or
acting.
whatever the difference is. I want to make sure that that's
Yeah.
clarified, but also just make the comment that Glenn is more seasoned, certainly, than he was close to 2 years ago when this document that we were looking for was July of 2019. But I'd like to hear from not just Glenn, but also Tony, if you feel prepared to discuss this. And I guess the other question I would have, would you be a candidate if you were an interim?
Or acting town administrator, yeah.
Or acting?
Yeah. We'll answer that question.
There's a lot of questions, I understand, but just, those are things on my mind right off the bat.
Do you want an answer to your question now, or do you want to wait on it?
I'll wait for other people to chime in, but I would like those things addressed.
Okay, yes.
So I think, I lost my train of thought, sorry, through all the extra discussion. I think it is important to know, if Glenn is indeed interested and there are the qualifications, which the last time around, Glenn was the acting
Yeah.
position. My background has been in academia, and oftentimes an interim is trained as an interim for, something very purposeful. I would suggest this time around that, I'd be in favor, at least initially, of, Glenn being the acting town administrator, under the condition that we possibly consider an interim assistant town administrator, maybe someone who is coming from the outside, who has some experience in different things that complement, like, Tony and Glenn have complementary characteristics. I wouldn't want to just keep, having people upfill, because there is so much on the table. And I think having that exposure to another person who might be willing to be an interim as second in command and not necessarily have to be, the end of, where the buck stops, that might be something I'd like for us to consider.
MJ?
that, I understand where the board's coming from, because they know Glenn, and he's been a good assistant town administrator. I think what you have to think about is perception. If you are going to elevate Glenn to an acting town administrator and bring in an interim town administrator, how does that look to people who would be applying to this job? Does it look like the board's already made their decision, or does it look like they're really looking for candidates? And in situations where you have a protracted search process, and let's kind of go back to the last time, Glenn was acting for 30 days. It was about the October 1st till the beginning of November when Tony was hired. So we're talking, if you're actually going to do a search, and if you look at the ICMA recommendations on a town administrator search, which the last one was very quick, the time frame for the hiring of the consultant was extremely tight. The consulting with a lot of decisions were made before the consultant was even hired. So I think that that if you hired interim, and I'm going to separate out interim from acting. So if you bring in an interim town administrator who would be a seasoned person not eligible for the position of town administrator, and it's very clear to set out that if you bring in an interim, that they are not eligible for the position. You're looking for someone who has been a town administrator, is an experienced, seasoned town administrator. A lot of times there's someone who has recently retired. We've seen this in Yarmouth where Bob Lawton went back. I mean, that's the kind of interim town administrator that you would bring in, recognizing that you're looking, if you really do a good town administrator search, it's a 6-month process. And if you hire someone who is already...
We did a good one in a short amount
Well,
of time, so, I'm sorry.
I
had to.
disagree with that statement. If you're gonna see a
Well,
very
I'm
good
not,
one,
that's not my opinion.
doesn't have
I'm
to
just
take
saying,
6 months.
if you read the ICMA manual, if you read the other manual, if you want to you need to have the discussion with your consultant, talk about candidates, set up a screening committee, allow the screening committee to go through the candidates and set up the interview process. And some people in the screening committee felt the process was rushed.
I'd like to know more about that.
Okay, so,
I mean, we should talk about that then.
yeah, I mean, that, it is a whole search process. So the concern you have when you have an acting person, and then especially if you bring in an interim assistant town administrator, people who are candidates are gonna say, this board's already made up their mind. I mean, if that's what you're gonna do, then just do it. Don't, you're not gonna get really strong candidates. If you, I've talked to different people who've done searches for town administrators or for superintendents and made that decision. One of the things that I think is really important is that the interim is not a candidate for the position. I think that's absolutely essential.
I agree.
And I think it's essential because it gives it also inhibits the candidate pool of who's gonna apply for the position. So, and it's nothing now, and that's just a perception of candidates. If you're gonna have a search, and you want candidates who are the best, strongest candidates to apply, this is one of the things that can help get those kind of candidates. The second thing is, and we have a tremendous amount of things going on, and if we're talking 6 months, and we haven't even started hiring a consultant yet. So, we're further along in the process than you were in the last time. You already had a consultant at the beginning of July for a November hire. I'm concerned about the fact that we don't have an HR person, we don't have a facilities director, we have other positions that are open, and we have a lot that's going on. We have a comprehensive wastewater management plan that's going on. We have a special town meeting in November that's going to have very important decisions made. You're going to start into the budget process. You're going to be close to the budget process for next year. I think there's a lot going on. And one of the things I've seen over the years in this town is that we find someone who's competent and we overburden them with so many things that they can't do things well. They're ending up putting out fires rather than being proactive. So, it's just my perspective. I think there are decisions that you could make that will have unintended consequences in terms of what you want to do. And I've been on school committees where we took the assistant superintendent and we just made him the superintendent and we didn't really even do a search. I mean, that's the transition, and that the board has to really think about what's the best way to proceed. And certainly, Glenn, I fully expect that even if we brought in an interim, that he would be a candidate for the position. Sometimes it puts you in a little bit better position to have that situation. There have been a number of towns that have brought in interims and had successful searches for, a new town administrator through the interim town administrator process. And this is nothing, it's not that, I don't think you're a good candidate. I'm just talking about the perception and the things that I know about how searches and candidates and recruiting works. That's my concept.
Tony, what is your opinion of this? Because you're leaving, but, I mean, this is your second community. I mean, from your experience and everything else, I mean, what would you, do you think Glenn's ready?
Well, I don't think that's a fair question to ask right now. To get into that, but I guess I would say, part of it is, as you develop the position profile, right? So the town charter has some specifics to it. And it's all about, making sure that the person that's selected for the position, has the training, education, experience, part of which is called out in the charter and things like that. I would agree with MJ in that if the board plans to go out and do a full search, it is, and I have seen this many times, that whether it's an interim or acting, however you want to call it, will normally call out in the advertisement that that person is not a candidate for the position for the reasons that she mentioned. So that is something you have to be cautious of. Because again, if you go out and do a search, you want to at least have a pool to, to look at, including any internal candidates. Because at the end of the day, it's to feel comfortable that you're making the best possible decision for the town, for your, chief executive officer, really, and to be able to function as that. So, it's certainly, a heavy lift for one person to handle everything. I mean, there's never a slow time, right? So, obviously, the fall, and Glenn and I have worked together for 20 months, and, we push forward a lot of things simultaneously that are, working in parallel with one another. And we have a lot of those on the plate right now, but, the budget, capital planning, all those things are, but, if you did it in January, you're looking at, annual town meeting still going through the budget process. There's never a good time, because there's always a lot going on. So you just want to make sure whatever decision you make, you're setting the person that's going to be acting or interim is set up for success. Because at the end of the day, the work of government and the work of the town needs to be done in the most efficient, manner possible, because there are always really important decisions we're asking, people to make. So, but yeah, I think, part of it may be, and, maybe what Dave Bergeson said is part of it, and I've been doing this for a really long time and been in organizations where, things happen and you have to sort of take a step back, dissect those things before you actually move forward. And so that may take another 30 to 45 days for the board to really, sort of delve into that a little bit. And again, to make sure that as you go through that process, that the end result is a good one and one that's going to be, lasting and all of that. So sometimes it takes a sit down of sorts to put everything out on the table, Sometimes there may be prickly subjects that you have to, put out there, but that's okay. I mean, we all have to, realize we're all in really high-level positions, right? And so it's important to get those things out there so that everybody kind of moves forward in a common, path ahead. So, so that's kind of how I really look at it, because at the end of the day, it's all about what's in the best interest of the town and of the community, and how it's going to be led, who's going to lead it, and making sure that it's somebody that's going to gel well with the board and the things that you want to accomplish, for the town and the community, because that's a key relationship there that has to be a positive one for everybody to be, effective in how they carry forward town business, so.
Through the chair. I do agree that, the idea of, an acting position, in the top position does have that perception. I was just picking up on the suggestion that Glenn be the acting, or interim. So that's all I have to say about that. I mean, it does take time, and I don't, I think, I just think we have a lot of conversation, to move forward. Yes, there are tangible things that we need to do, that are based on, timelines and all of that. But one of the things that has been worthwhile, I think, over the last 20 months is that this team, Tony and Glenn, have been able to develop a rapport and connect with people and connect with staff and building leadership from within. And, that's something hugely important, for moving forward. And I don't, it's really easy to get caught up in the tasks that are, ahead and the timelines that are ahead. But sometimes unless something is urgent, it is really important to regroup and have those conversations, about, one of the things, one of the reasons I decided to run for a select board is because, I'm in a management position. I have a ton of that, management and leadership experience. And no, I'm not the outgoing political, handshaking person. But that's okay. I bring something to the board. And, I have seen success in professional life and been really encouraged by seeing success, with this team, by the team of looking at the Board of Selectmen as a team and having us make sure that we have complementary, skills, and that we have ways that we can keep, not only have strategic plan, but who people are taking different pieces, parts, and helping and, pushing ahead the agendas. So, I think it's not a task. Like the last time around, that was a task. That was urgent. It was short term. We were able to do it. It was successful. I don't recommend a 3-month project again, for the recruiting, but that was appropriate for that time. This time, I think, we have and I know I keep saying we have soul searching to do, and discussion to have, about the future. So,
Well, maybe that's part of the retreat,
yeah.
is we do that soul searching, and then decide after our retreat what the next steps are going to be.
Can I make a suggestion? So, one of the things that the board did last time was that they made a lot of decisions about the timeline and what the timeline was gonna be and who laid out the qualifications of the candidate before they hired the recruiter. And if you look at some of the recruiting timelines and work that people that work in the government space and do recruiting, they have sort of their own process that they like to go through, where when you interview the recruiter, part of the interview process is they're talking about their process and how they find the best candidate to fit your situation. So rather than decide whether we want an acting or an interim, maybe what we should be talking about is if there's going to be an RFP, which there doesn't have to be, you can, this isn't something that requires procurement like some other, this is one of the things that doesn't really require procurement. You have to get quotes or whatever, but I think that might be the step, because if you interview several candidates, bring in Don Collins, and really, when you look at the last time, the finalization, June 29th, I think, or 26th, was the RFP for the recruiter, and the interviews were July 10th. So there were two people that, brought in resumes, but maybe if there had been a little bit more timeline out for that. And I do know that when they did the superintendent search in Bourne, the recruiter helped them for the interim discussion and for the permanent discussion. So maybe knowing who's in marketplace, what kind of person you might be, what are your choices in terms of that, might be something that you could bring into the process, so.
Through the chair. Yes, I do agree. It can be spread out. I really think that the time frame and that worked before was appropriate, and it worked. So we had those serious conversations with the recruiters, and there was an urgency with that. So the timeline should be longer at this stage of the game for what we're looking at. And I do think that having the conversation about whether it's involving an interim and that type of thing is appropriate with that possibility of the RFP. And I think that if there is a gap in time, like say that we are pushing along and we're not able to have some of the decisions made, I think it is absolutely, Glenn has proven himself to be an acting town administrator, and that could be a temporary basis again, that type of thing. So, this is a different circumstance. Both types of circumstances are correct.
The thing, Tony.
No, I just, if I could just step back for a minute, because I want to clarify what I said earlier when I said it wasn't really fair to ask me that. And the reason I said that, because I didn't want to make it sound like that was a non-endorsement, but really the reason is because Glenn and I haven't really talked about it. And, one of my most important jobs, in addition to leading the town, is mentoring people that work for me, not just Glenn, but my entire staff. And, I'll share with you a little story, and then an article I read in the ICMA magazine just recently. But when I was a young major and our organization was going through a really difficult time, the commander came to me and said, look, I'm putting you in charge of operations, which was a full colonel's position. Now, in the military, we're very rank structured, so that's a really unusual position to put somebody in. And one of my mentors, who happened to be second in command, came to me and said to me, look, I just want you to know that I wasn't in favor of this because I think it's too early. Now, ultimately, the commander did it anyways, and the rest speaks for itself that everything worked out. But the article that I read, and one of the challenges for folks in Glenn's position as you're moving up and you want that advancement in your career, and I know he aspires to that, is part of it needs to be his reflection on that. And the article in the ICMA magazine really talked about assistant town administrators, assistant city managers, and things like that, about how they should analyze when is it time to make that next leap into the CEO or CAO type of position. So that's a conversation that Glenn and I need to have, because I want to see what he thinks about it, and I'll share with him personally some of my stuff. But the reason I said that was because he and I have not really had an opportunity to talk about that. And I think that's an important conversation that we should have, and because I know that he's preparing himself, and I've shared just about everything I do with him, because that's really important. The door to our office, if you guys come in, is pretty much open all day long, and so everything is done side by side, because that's the way it should be, and wasn't really that way before I got there. And so hopefully he's found a lot of value in that, and I look forward to him great success, however, things move forward. So I just wanted to clarify that, not kind of caught me by surprise, but.
to me, it's not about ability as it is I think we'd be doing Glenn a disservice if we said, you're gonna take care of this all on your own. We gotta give you, we gotta get another person in there to spread the work out, cause it's two of you. Now 2 equals 1, you're gonna burn yourself out, and it's not fair to you, and so, and to the town. So that's why we gotta have that discussion, just to make sure that we, because, and also Tony may be available by phone, if you ever need to ask a question, whatever. But, I mean, having an experienced person in the room with you, it's only gonna make you grow that much more too. Maybe learn some new things that Tony hasn't taught you. Because you'll go eventually, is to be sitting in Tony's seat, in a community. If it's not here, it's someplace else. That's the ultimate goal, I believe. I don't know. I'm big on, when I came from Target Corporation, the biggest thing was you were given a yearly performance review and you were given a 6-month review. And if we wanted to go up to the next step, we would ask to go meet with someone the next step up in another division. And go see someone in the other, give them your review and say, well, how are you, these are the things that my boss feels I need to do to move up to the next level. What do you think I need to do in order to get there? And to this day, I still talk to some of them, as personal friends, but it was very invaluable, because it helped me move up through the company when I was there. By networking and going out and having a frank conversation with a mentor that didn't know the politics of it, and actually gave his honest assessment. And today he's a senior executive vice president for the whole company. So it's, and so I just think that it's part of maybe this retreat that we need to discuss what our next step is. Yes.
Thanks, through the chair. One of the things that we talked about in the spring, when there was some controversy and disagreement, was to involve, I was given the direction of finding some special counsel who would be appropriate to helping facilitate, someone outside, not invested necessarily in Bourne, and to help facilitate discussion, help facilitate training. We don't know it all, and we do need to figure out how to work, as a unit. And there are some things that are unresolved, and I would say that, I stepped forward. I did a lot of homework. I did a lot of interviewing. I did, a lot of preparation to find Attorney Lamke. And I have to say that when I brought it forward, I was really discouraged that we, as a board, just kind of said, yeah, not now. I'm telling you, people, we need to get this stuff out on the table before we think about a timeline, before we think about who's in what position. There needs to be a reconciliation. There are things that are left undone. And, I respectfully came back to the board and said, there was a time when there was a request for an investigation, and I respectfully came back to the board and said, we aren't going to do that. The timing's not right. It's not the appropriate thing. But this other avenue is. I vetted this person, had him come here and talk about some of the things that he can do. And he is fully prepared. So I put that back out there. I've been stewing about it for a while. So I just, that's where we need to start. We need to start with that. I'm not into brushing things under the rug and just carrying on. So I think some candid conversation needs to happen.
An example of that is if you look at the agenda for the school committee for Friday, July 23rd, it is for a day it is a summer workshop retreat. And the first thing on the agenda is review roles and responsibility of school committee members. Well, maybe review roles and responsibility of board of select board members. Second item is goal setting for the 21-22 academic year. Well, maybe it's the second bullet point is our goals and strategic plan objectives for the 21st, 22nd fiscal year. And then the third thing on it is reestablish, subcommittees, but I get subcommittees on here for later on. But I'm saying we could do something similar at our retreat. And I think it could be, and if anybody else wants to add anything to that retreat, I mean, granted, we spread out the timeline a lot more, because this is from 9 to 11:30. I plan on this retreat being 1 or 2 days, because I think there's a lot to do. But I throw that out there for a discussion. Do you think our retreat should be something similar to what the school committee is proposing as an example? I think
I think so.
I think it would be great.
Glenn?
Yeah, if I could, and I don't know if we're moving on to a different agenda topic right now.
Yeah.
If we are, that's fine, because I would like to answer the questions that Mr. Slade
Oh, yeah, please
posed to
do.
you. First, I'll take the easiest one first. I will apply for the job. If the job's built, I will apply for the job. I think right now, for the interim, I think what the board should really consider, probably two parts to it, is what's best for the town and board, right? And right now, I think MJ really hit the nail right on the head. There's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. I think right now, I would be the best person for that job to carry all the things forward that Tony's brought here for the last 2 years, and to continue that to happen. Also, as we get into a special town meeting, and budget season is, a month and a half away, 2 months away. That's an incredible amount of time and work that needs to be done out of that corner office. I think that needs to be considered in there. I think for the perception, and I understand the perception, I do think it's real. I think that's where it's up to your consultant. Your consultant might have to do a little bit more recruiting. Your consultant might have to do a little bit more work, but that's on him or her. Let them do the work for you, right? That's their job. That's why you hire them. Bring them on board to do it. I think the board might be in a really tough position with this, but the closer and closer we get to September 3rd, I can tell you, the clearer it probably becomes to me that I think I would be the best candidate for the town to be the acting town administrator as we move forward into November 15th. The last time when I was acting, it was for that 1 month. Tony had a chance to start after town meeting. That was a good time to start because it kind of cleared the slate. Tom had done a lot of work on the budget before that. That helped, I think, with Tony's first year. We'll be walking into budget season. Tony's laid out a lot of the groundwork probably on the budget that was better than before. And I think I could continue that work. So I think those are the things I'd like the board to consider as you move forward with your deliberation. And I understand it's a tough vote for the board. I mean, this is very important decisions. The last decision was very important. Your next decision will be very important.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to add to that, and I think it's important. I think, there was a little controversy per se at the last town meeting with going outside with the chief's position and changing that. And there was a perception that, well, why wouldn't we automatically try to take someone that was already working within the department? And I'll say the same thing. I think it's best to have a full drawer full of candidates, if you will, in your desk drawer to go through in order to find the best candidate for the town of Bourne. And I think that holds true the same here. And I think, yes, part of that is important for the firm that we hire, that they make it clear that there's a bar set, and you have to be above that bar. And in this particular case, that bar is Glenn. I mean, he's worked under one of the best, if not the best, town manager in the state. And he has said time and time again that one of his greatest and most important things that he does as a town manager is he prepares his staff to move forward in their career, in their life. He gives them that opportunity by teaching them. And I think not only has he done that with Glenn, But being that high level of a town manager, I think that gives an awful lot of benefit to Glenn. And again, I think it sets a bar, and I think as a town, we're saying, we're looking for the best, and we're not gonna take anything less. And I think that's important. And again, I think a lot of that falls on the firm that we hire. It's just been made very clear, the strides in the last couple of years with Tony, how much has gone on within the town and how many changes have been made for the better. You know, it just shows how quickly Glenn has been able to move forward in his career and really take charge of, you know, every opportunity to learn. I have never seen a day where Glenn is not one of the first people there, the last people to leave, no matter what the function. It's 110% from Glenn all the time. And again, I think we set the bar there, and I think that's important for people to understand. If you want to come to the town of Bourne, you really have to bring your A game. And I think it all depends on how you look at it. Everybody has a different perception. You know, as a police officer, you're standing on the side of the road in the pouring rain, talking to another officer, laughing. The perception of the guy driving by in the car is that you guys are just goofing around, when really it's a fatal accident, and laughter is one of the things that you need in that particular time. So there's a perception, and I think the important part of it is for our recruiting firm to put that perception in the right angle or in the right description, the requirements. And that, a lot of that comes from us, but, you know, I think we have to expect that much of the firm that we hire. And I just think that that's an important part that Glenn brings to this. And I think it's up to us to fuel that perception.
Yes.
Thank you. I think you made some good points, Jared, and I think, Glenn, it was good to hear your take on all this, too, because it's kind of important. But the real impetus here is that we really have to do this right. And it has to, and if we could buy time, so be it. And if reconsidering Jim Lamke, I think that he just came in at the wrong time, and there was a lot of moving parts. And I really felt badly, too, about him, because I think we can't take him off the table. He's got a lot of resources at MMA. I think he's, you know, he may be able to, we'd have to probably take a while to figure out what type of, you know, capacity we would use him for, but he may be able to clear some of that out. In other words, what do we have? Somebody who's in an upper management position in the town who is also a candidate. How can we take that to the public and convey that to other applicants, that this is not an inside job. This is something, you know, you are as viable a candidate as the person who has supposedly the inside track. And we want to make sure that that is spelled out loud and clear, because I think from the time decisions are made, they will be looking at our relationship. How is he looking at us? How are we looking at him? What is he doing? We know that we have a hot button issue, and does he have an inside track that he's using to his advantage to make, you know, and I'm really concerned about that. But I think between somebody, maybe Lamke may be the answer. The recruiting firm, I think they would come a little bit later, because we want them, their scope of work would be different from that. But I think moving forward, we know that there are three that I know of, three very good interims that we could bring in and give us that extra time. What we want to do is make sure, and this is kind of stupid, but, you know, we obviously want to make sure that we end up with a good decision, because there were two very high-functioning towns that have dealt with having to pick up they weren't really, well, they were becoming messes that, and high-level positions that they just, maybe they hired the wrong person. It's very easy to make that Monday morning quarterback comment, but it's still, those people, we have them, and I know the names of three that and no one's being used right now. But I think it would be helpful to at least approach them or anybody, and they may know other people that we're not aware of that haven't been tapped. But I think it's important that we use our time wisely and make sure that if we can use that as a benefit, a resource, let's use as much time as we can without carrying this out too far. And I know this is kind of stupid comments, but I mean, basically, it is what we have to be thinking of the end game, and this is what I want for the town.
MJ?
Well, it sounds like this is a topic for the transition plan is the topic for retreat as well.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what it sounds, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's ready to make a decision tonight. I think, and I do think that bringing someone in from the outside who's had experience talking through some of these issues might have different perspectives and different stories, and, you know, sometimes that's helpful. You know, this is how it worked in this community, and this is how it worked in that community, and I don't, obviously, no, I don't have all the answers. I think we have to be careful and thoughtful about the process that we use and how we go forward. So, you know, we talked in June about it being really important to have the retreat in June. And, you know, now we're July 20th and we haven't set a date yet, so.
We're gonna talk
I
about
think
that
that's,
tonight.
I mean, I think setting a date, is, you know, like defining dates, I think that's important. I think there's, you know, roles and responsibilities, goals, you know, having some sort of discussion about the transition plan, and then really feeling that we feel confident about what we're doing, so that's fine with me.
All right, so at this point,
Get out your calendars.
yeah, I got my calendar open now. I think Tony, Glenn and I were talking about the 13th and 14th of August, because they need 2 to 3 weeks to pull this all together, right, Tony?
Well, a couple of weeks, depending on what the board wants for, you know, subject.
It matters.
And any other information that we want prepared for the, you know, for the retreat.
And can we go back over to the hotel, or do you want to, in the conference room in there? Or do you want to try to do it over here, or maybe Mass Maritime?
Yeah, I mean, I think well, I don't know, I mean, the hotel worked fine, I mean,
Yeah, the hotel's fine.
we'll have to call them and, you know,
Yeah,
just.
so August weekend
August,
might not be great for them to.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
weekend,
I'd like to think we're competing with them, if they're doing that much business.
Yeah, it won't be a problem to find a space one way or the other.
Yeah,
We-
that's
you know.
not, yeah.
yeah. Because I was thinking either the 13th and 14th, or the 20th or 21st, because the 6th and 7th, they're tight, that's PMS weekend, so we know that's no way happening. So how does the board feel about booking out at least a Friday, Saturday, and if we get it all done in one long day, then we don't have to come back on a Saturday? Or do we want to break it out into 2 half days on a Friday and Saturday, so we can try to make sure we get certain things accomplished?
Glenn, when are you going on vacation? Is that your weekend?
The 13th and 14th.
It's your vacation.
Yeah.
So now we're talking, when do you come back?
The 17th.
It's the 18th and 19th?
When do you leave?
On the 11th.
Oh, okay. So you're taking a full week.
Is 9 and 10 doable, like a Monday, Tuesday? No, but people have to work during the day, so that's the other thing.
Oh, I
too.
could do one
mean,
day.
Yeah,
one
what if we
day,
did
I
a
mean, if we
Sunday?
One day,
Commit to
Yeah.
one
and then
day.
we could always, you
Yeah.
know, if we need to do more,
Right.
we can add another
Yeah.
date or
Well,
something.
how
But
about-
I think one day, either, I mean,
Is Monday the 9th all right?
Yeah, I gotta say Mondays would probably be better for me than a
Okay.
Friday.
Yeah, I'm okay on Monday the 9th. About this end table.
I'll make that happen. Monday the 9th?
Yep. Was that, I don't know, 8:30. We'll be there for 8:30, so we can start at
Yeah, sure, whatever you want.
8:30, 8:30 to 3:30.
And that is right after, that's the Monday after Pan Mass Challenge, but
Yeah.
basically Pan Mass Challenge pretty much ends for Buzzards Bay, early in the morning, right?
On Sunday
And then
morning,
the rest
yeah.
of it is cleanup.
It's a
Yeah.
different schedule this year, too.
Yes.
8:30.
Yeah, because this year with PMS, what they're doing is they're coming to the campus, check in, and they leave, and then they come back. They have to find their own lodge, and they come back the following morning. So Monday the 9th, I think, will be good. So Monday the 9th, 8:30 to 3:30, and then as topics of discussion, we can talk about like introductions and overview of the workshop. We can have Tony talk about the, what's gonna, what the overview's gonna be, and then discussion items. The review roles and responsibility of select board members, and that will be Jim Lamke. Strategic plan goal setting, 21-22 fiscal year, that will be Tony and Glenn.
It's probably good for them.
Alright, do we need to add anything else to that? Other than a lunch, and and that sort of thing, but any other subjects that we need to add to it other than those two items?
Well, you wanted the transition plan.
Oh,
on,
transition
right?
plan, all right, so we can add that as 3. We'll figure out what goes first, what goes second sort of thing, but though at least
I
those
mean,
are
if
the
you're
top.
gonna have Lamke, you may need to ask him what fits in his schedule.
Yeah.
Yeah,
what,
if it's-
you know, so.
Or, yeah, it wouldn't have to be, I mean, actually, he was actually intimating that he may come up with a person other than himself.
Hmm.
I think that was part of his presentation, didn't he? Or maybe I
Well,
was,
we have an agreement with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't think he was looking,
yeah, but I mean, part of it, he
I don't
could
remember it.
hire a sub or something like that to help with him, but, I mean, he has a lot of the answers, I think. I mean,
He
he has,
does.
he has a good
He
second
does.
set of eyes that I would
Yep.
be, have a lot of respect for. But, anyway, that's,
so if there's any other topics that we're not thinking of now, just send them to Tony, and then we'll try to fit them in, if we feel that we have the time to do it.
is that an agenda, on our agenda? Is that
No,
copy?
that's the school
That's the-
committee agenda.
Oh,
for
okay,
Friday.
all
I'm
right,
just- I'm
okay, I was
just-
wondering when
I'm
you
u-
were
I'm-
reading off stuff.
No, I'm using that as a template.
All right, okay.
So, do you think we have enough with that for now, or do we need to speak any further?
Good, we're done.
Okay, next item is discussion related to double poll bylaw. Now, this was something that I brought up a while ago. And the reason why I brought it up is going around town, I've noticed that when utility companies go out and replace a telephone pole after an accident, they just sister it, or they put the new one up and then they cut the old one in half and they just leave it there. And as a result, the old telephone pole ends up being more of an eyesore more than anything else. So what I did a while ago, but it's now in your packet, is I put a draft bylaw in that states, under 34B of Chapter 164 of Mass General Law, an electrical distribution company or telephone company engaged in the removal of an existing pole and the installation of a new pole in place thereof shall complete the transfer of wires, all repairs, and removal of the existing pole from the site within 90 days of the date of installation of the new pole, or within 90 days of the effective date of the bylaw, whichever is later, provided, however, that for any approved commercial or industrial construction project, the completion of which is expected to take longer than 1 year, said company shall be required to remove such pole within 6 months of the date of the installation of the new pole. The owner of such pole shall notify all other users of the starting date of such removal and installation, work at least 48 hours prior to the commencement of such work, and the owner shall require all other users to remove their wiring and other attachments from the pole in a timely manner. For the purposes of this provision, the term owner shall mean the entity which holds the legal title of the pole or holds the majority interest of the legal title of the pole. Violations of this bylaw shall be punishable by $100 for each pole each day the violation. This bylaw may be enforced by a non-criminal disposition pursuant to Chapter 40, Section 21D of Mass General Laws by any police officer, building inspector, or DPW director of the town, whichever who is designated for it. And what made me think of this is we had the blizzard a few years back where people lost power for weeks at a time because of these utility poles, were just falling, the winds knocked it down. They put the new one up and the old one's still there, and then within 6 months, the old one's causing a problem. I think aesthetically pleasing, it doesn't look good when we're trying to have a clean image in town. And B, I think it's something that it shows that we have pride in our town, that we don't want to be we just don't want companies just putting something in and just abandoning it. So I think, this is worth in other communities. And I'm just wondering if the board would consider discussing this and putting this on the warrant for this fall's town meeting. And I know Jared's been an electrical contractor for years. I'm curious what Jared's.
So it's interesting, and we kind of had this discussion about, and it's not necessarily ownership, it's maintenance thereof.
Yeah.
So that becomes an issue as to who you're going to put it on. But it's very difficult, and it's not just with car accidents. As they upgrade sections, they'll do a whole section of poles. They'll put all the new ones in and cut a portion of the old one off and just sister it, because they're waiting for the other two entities, whether it be the phone company or Comcast or whatever. But I think this is the start of something that has to become, eventually has to become a bylaw, because I just don't see that there's any other way we're going to work through that. I don't know that it works as said. There'll have maybe be some tweaking to that, but
Yeah.
I do like the idea. I think, it's something that has been an issue for quite some times. I know that we've had officers go around and designate poles that have been there for a long period of time in that state, and try to give that list to either Eversource or the phone company, and it just has become, cat chasing a mouse. So it's something that I think is going to be difficult for us to stick, but I think it's worth trying. I think it's something that's worthwhile. It is a problem, and it's a problem throughout the Cape. It's not just here. But I do like the idea of the bylaw. Let's see where we can go with it.
I mean, personally, the first step, I think, if you guys want to if the board members want to go forward with it, is to refer this to the bylaw committee for action. So, and with David Gay being the chair of that committee, and a town council and other communities, as a lawyer, he could probably tweak things to his.
Right. Or at least point us in the right
Your
direction.
direction.
We can't.
But I think the first step, if the board feels, it should be looked at, that maybe we should refer this to the bylaw committee for their review. Does anybody else have anything?
No, I think that's a good start, though.
It sounds very, through the chair, it sounds very positive. Are there any negatives that we're not thinking about?
So I think one of the things you might consider is towns that have actually adopted this, because double poles
Yeah.
or cut poles, sometimes you'll see them where there's only like a 6-foot section that's kind of hanging there. Because as Jared said, there's a rule about on top goes first.
Yeah.
So depending on who owns the wires, you have to do it in order, right? And so if you look at a pole, you can have Eversource, Verizon, Comcast, OpenCape, other things. And so each of those companies, you have to wait till the person above you moves to the new pole.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see towns that have this, how it's worked out, and if they've run into any challenges in terms of if it does go over 9 days and you start finding the owner of the pole, and they start blaming the person on top or the next person to go, they don't have any leverage against them, just to see how it works, to see if they've had any legal challenges or any troubles particularly when you get to the fining portion after that initial, sort of 90-day grace period. So, but I think it's something we definitely need because, matter of fact, the scraggy neck thing, right? So we just moved the stop sign and put up that stop ahead sign because they put in a second pole in, which is a little bit closer to the road than the original pole. And as you drive up, you can't see the stop sign.
Yeah.
So in that particular case, and I've talked to DPW about this because they just go out and do it. They don't necessarily need any permits from the town, and the utility ended up putting a pole in place that was blocking a pretty important, traffic signal being a stop sign.
Yeah, and it's a dangerous intersection, and it was that rollover car accident on June 17th where the person coming down Red Brook Harbor Road couldn't see the stop sign and just went, and it, so it was interesting, the people that got hit actually went back and looked at it and sent me the pictures, which I sent to Tony.
So these you gotta have some teeth. So I think this is something we have to do. It's just, as we look at what the right verbiage is and all that, is maybe to find out, communities that have this, how's it going? And maybe they've learned something along the way that this may need a little tweaking. Did this come from a particular town?
Yeah, I want to say Natick.
Okay.
Yes, so if I may add, through the chair, so, and that pecking order, so to speak, it is kind of important. So, what happens then is, do we have somebody set up in the town to say, okay, we've notified this company, now who's next? Or, in this particular case, it's saying that, the company that replaces the pole, who would have maintenance control and or replacement, is required to send out notification to the next person and the next person. So you really, do you pay a person for the town to make sure they monitor it, or do you, put it on the first company that changes it? So that kind of becomes a little bit of an issue, and I know there's been some issue with some of these that they've done, and that seems to be a big sticking point. Finding the parent company or the pole replacement company, when really it's, the guy on the very bottom that's holding the whole thing up. So that has become a bit of an issue, and I think it's important that we send it through the bylaw committee and see, again, like Tony said, how have other towns been doing with it?
The other thing we may want to do is you can reach out to your Cape and Islands town administrators and just cut and paste it, send out and say, what have you done in your community with this? Or with some of his assistants like Peter Johnson Staub or Heather Hopper or anybody, just see what's out there and have them report back as well. And that information can be brought to the bylaw committee as part of the deliberation as well.
So would you be looking for the bylaw committee to actually write this, or just
Review it, and if they feel that that is good to go forward, if they have if the bylaw committee wants to make any changes, then they can make the suggested changes, bring it back to the board, and then if we feel that that's the one we want to submit to town meeting, then the bylaw committee will ultimately have to approve it, make their recommendation, and then it goes through here, the finance committee, and then, the town meeting process. Yes?
I think one thing, when you refer to the bylaw committee, you have to be clear that you're asking them not just to say this is a legal bylaw, this is okay, but to say, this is a direction we think we'd like you to work on this bylaw and make sure that it's worded correctly and presented properly. Because one of the things in listening to Jared is, unless the person that puts in this extra poll notifies the town that they put in the extra poll, who knows when a poll went in? You're chasing around in circles trying to figure it out. So you almost have to say, anytime, part of your poll license, when you do this replacement, you need to notify the town, and then you have to have who's going to get notified and keep track of it.
Well, and so I'm just kind of spitballing here and thinking outside the. What if we did all the towns on the Cape put together something? What if we can do something like that? I think that would have a lot more pull because, and I say that because the power companies and Comcast and Verizon, all of them are really kind of segregated in the same way that we are, like county or, different sections, or, so maybe we take and get together with the other towns and say, look, let's put our heads together, come up with something, and then let's notify these participants and get them involved in it so that it works for everyone. I kind of think that that might be a little bit more powerful. When you include all the towns on the Cape, you kind of bring it all together, as well as all those companies that are segregated in almost the same way on the Cape. They all come together and they have one point person to really kind of help organize all of it, along with, the towns. I think that's probably maybe a better way to do it.
the
Just
county do it.
spitballing, like I said.
Have the county do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's an option, I just,
Yeah.
it's,
Assembly of Delegates.
it's a tough spot for one town to put a bylaw and hold, a certain
Yeah.
entity that's got 5 entities involved. To hold one of them accountable and fine them, it's, it's a very difficult process that's gonna cost money to set it up.
Yeah, 'cause from what I understand is Verizon owns the poles north of the canal, and Eversource owns all the poles south of the canal.
But you're gonna have to bring in Eversource,
Yeah.
Verizon,
Yep.
Xfinity, Comcast, and there may be a couple of other entities on
Yeah,
smaller
okay,
sections that
yeah.
would also be involved, but I think you might do better if you did it as a Cape-wide thing.
Which would
Some-
take a while, but at least
Yeah.
if the bylaw committee looks at it and see if there's any appetite for it.
I think, we have to give them the deliverable,
Yeah.
and one of them might be an interim deliverable, I hate to say it,
Yeah.
but, because Jared, you got the answer, I think, ultimately, that would take a while to get
Well, and I
all
think-
15 towns,
Make a bylaw.
even,
But I think if we put a bylaw
Approach
together
it.
through our committee,
yeah,
I think then that gives you something to approach the other towns with and
Model.
say,
this is
You
what
know,
we,
Yeah.
yeah.
well, we'd like to do it all together if we can get everybody on the same page. And I think you're gonna have, everyone's gonna be kinda on the same page, because I know I've gone to other towns, and this is a similar complaint, really throughout the Cape. And I know I've talked to people from some of these companies that have said that, that they're constantly getting that complaint. So, I mean, I think it's a Cape-wide issue that we might be able to, do that. But I think we start with something from ourselves and then work our way out. I think that might be the way.
Yeah. Judy?
Chair, thank you. So I think it's great I'm in support of going, to the bylaw committee, but what I'm also not sure, I'm sitting here listening, I'm not really sure who's going to go about finding, other towns and what their success rate has been.
Well, I figured Tony or Glenn can
Yeah, I
send
think
an
we can
email out.
Okay.
send out a call we'll start with the Cape, but we have a
Yep.
listserv, I think, for all the, through the MMA.
Okay.
If we need to go wider to see who's got double pull, bylaws and get some feedback.
Thanks.
So I guess if we do refer this to the bylaw committee for fall, for review, what is our expectations? What do we want the bylaw committee to do? Do we want them to approve the form, or do we want, or do we, what do we want them to do? Do we want them to look at and see if it's realistic? Is it something that we should, because ultimately the review of the bylaw committee is gonna carry weight. So we wanna give them.
Yeah, I think we have to give them,
Well, we're
parameters.
required to send it to them anyways.
Yeah.
right? So, but you're right, we have to figure out what is it that we want them to do. Part of it maybe once we get some samples and see what it looks like, I mean, if we're able to do most of that, internally through, the staff, PD, DPW, all that, I mean, the bylaw committee may more just be a review for form and all of that, since it's gonna be a new bylaw.
Or at least, if we get the information from other towns, through staff, it gives us something else to give to them to try and, coagulate all of it.
As much as I would like it for November's town meeting, it's probably better for the annual, so we can work on it over the
Yeah.
winter.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, at least I brought it forward.
Yep, I think, if you don't mind,
Yeah.
Chair, I think, we might consider tabling this until we have more information. Going from here.
We will just,
I think we continue it, maybe bring it up in our next, in our next workshop. for discussion again?
Is there a motion that we continue this discussion to our next available workshop? Is there a second?
Seconded?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you for the discussion. I guess it's just that safety reasons, aesthetic reasons, and everything else, I think is something that has been long overdue.
Good point.
Next thing is discussion related to potential bylaw change related to pothole and other repairs to unaccepted roads. Who is leading that discussion?
Kelly is.
Weird thing about this, you're supposed to take these discussions. Forgot to tell you.
Yeah, I think, part of the thought process on this one, obviously, we know that, whether it's 50% or we know of the majority of our roads or a large percentage of them are private ways open to the public, which requires, an investment by the folks that live on those roads to maintain and upkeep the road, the drainage system, all of that. And so typically you see that done through the betterment process. It's a pretty cumbersome one. You have to petition the Board of Selectmen and all of that kind of thing. So, those are probably appropriate if you're gonna go in and do a full major reconstruction of the road, right?
Yeah.
Dig it all up, fix the drainage, come in and reset the base and then the wear course and then obviously the top coat on top of that. So, but there's, I think, from our perspective, there's probably we should have an ability to be able to do some minor repairs without having to go through a cumbersome process, because typically that takes a while and they just get worse. And so the thought with a bylaw like this would allow us to, go in and do some minor pothole repair and things like that. To, again, ensure the roads are passable, but at the end of the day, it also assists the town, because we have expensive equipment, we, need to plow, and we need to do all these different things. And so when we're going down roads that are in poor condition, then it's also damaging our equipment and, things like that. So, so I think the idea behind this, and talking to Sean, because this one's a template that was used in Marshfield, would allow us to go in and do temporary minor repairs. So, but what we have to consider is, obviously, we have other accepted roads, right, that we get Chapter 90 money for, which doesn't cover everything. So, everything costs money, right? So money only goes so far. So I think, one of the things we talked about is having a budgeted amount for these minor repairs on an annual basis that would be used for this purpose, right? And that would be the extent of what we would be able to, to do. So part of what Glenn and I have been working with them on is, we went out and did a pavement condition index on all of our accepted roads. We want to have actually the same thing done on all of our roads, right? So including the private roads open to the public, and get a, sort of a catalog of all of those, and their pavement condition index and things like that. So we have a good understanding of what the condition of all those roads are, and because eventually a lot of those will need to be reconstructed, which leads you to the next thing. If that happens, and they're brought up to subdivision standards for today, what process do we go through to then have the town accept those roads and, garner the Chapter 90 money for those and kind of work, the ongoing, maintenance. That's obviously a town decision. I don't know all the rationale from way back when to decide not to be accepting any roads. I don't know if it was 1985 or 95, but it's been a long time.
Yeah.
So, but also I think, we don't necessarily have a lot of land where we're putting in big major subdivisions either. A lot of them are much smaller type of, developments that maybe only have a couple of houses and not big, large, developments and, a mile of roadway and that kind of thing. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
I know that I tried bringing this bylaw through to this, 3 years ago, this is before you got here. Tom laughed at me. He wouldn't even consider it. And my thing is, it's worthwhile in Marshfield where the DPW, subject to appropriation at an annual town meeting, may make temporary repairs on private ways subject to the following. The extent of repairs shall be to fill holes or mend other damage with materials similar to those used in original construction. The intent of the repair is to maintain a private way of present quality, permitting safe passage when due caution is exercised. And my thing is, and we've all said it earlier, is school buses, DPW trucks, trash trucks go over these roads. If someone gets injured or our equipment gets damaged, we're gonna pay for it in another way. So, I mean, by putting a small amount of money to do temporary repairs to fix potholes, yeah, granted it's on a private road. However, well, private on accepted roads. Private roads that no one has access to and they do their own plow and everything else, those are off the table. These are just unaccepted roads. But I think you're keeping people safe. Our town employees aren't getting injured and we're not breaking any equipment for the short amount of money. And a lot of these taxpayers that have these houses on these unaccepted roads are paying a pretty good amount of money. And for the short amount of goodwill to fix a pothole or fix or empty a catch basin or fix something minor, I think it goes a long way. And because I was over, I've been through various subdivisions on and off Clay Pond Road where I got to drive to the opposite side of the road so I don't rip my undercarriage out of my car. So it's just something, I just think it's something that it's worked in other communities, and I think it's something that it's something the town should explore, because for the minor repair that we're doing, it shows that the town's doing something for them.
So, if I may, Tony, what about, I know we just did that last one on, the
Howard
lake, yeah.
Oh, Howard Ave.
Howard Ave.
That's through our current bylaw, but yeah.
Right. So, it's funny because Weldon Park has a similar issue. Similar as in it's a lake to go through it, but they originally, the problem was they never got an easement and they had ran pipe into the yard of the first house there, but never put a dry well or anything.
Who's they? The developer?
Developer.
Okay, which
So-
we find that's pretty common.
So, yeah, so now what do you do? But that's becoming one of those issues where it's gonna be impassable. And I agree, because I have had flat tires working with the PD, and,
Right.
it really puts a burden on the town, one way or the other.
Right. Yeah, and I think when you look at Howard Ave, that's sort of beyond minor repairs because of what's, accumulated over, years of poor drainage and other, factors, right? So that's kind of a big, but you want a part of a venom from getting to that point.
Right.
If you can, until, you have to do sort of the major, reconstruction like we did on Nuovo and Laura Lane
Laura
and
Lane,
those
yeah.
places, so.
So I think that's something that we really need to look into, and, I guess the DPW would have to kind of come up with, like you say, categorizing everything. Maybe-
Yeah, we'll have to have some criteria too, right? So,
Yeah.
what's minor and what's not, before you have to go back to our original bylaw to say, hey, look, this is gonna need to be done, either through the betterment process or, the cash deposit with the assent of 51% of, the abutters with linear footage and all that.
I think one of the other important issues here is that we haven't accepted any roads. So I think we also, as a town, we have to say, listen, we would like to get our roads accepted, and if you're going to do the work and do the betterments and move forward on it, we have to say, okay, well, let's do the acceptance part of it. Let's,
And I realize that goes to town meeting, right? So if, let's say,
No,
so
you
then you
can't.
gotta do the road layout hearing through the Board of Selectmen, and then it goes on the town meeting warrant for acceptance. So, that's why sometimes they say, well, gee, if we do the betterment, will you accept the road? I said, well, we can't guarantee anything because it does need to go to town
Right.
meeting. But again, that's a community decision. Hopefully, it's a reflection on the community. When people are looking to move into a community, they look at all different kinds of things. And I know people don't always think about, I wonder what, whether the conditions of the road, factor into that. And does it affect people's property values and things like that? And I think it's important that we have a good road network,
Well, I
because it reflects on our community as well.
I think as a town, if we put together a list and we start working on it as a town, I think that shows, and then when you go to town meeting and you pitch that, I think, again, you have to set that perception that, we're trying to make this better for everybody, and, this is how we make it right. I think, again, that's the sale of the perception.
Right.
Judy?
I guess the only hesitancy that I have is if we do something that is on a recurring basis that we're repairing or doing minor repairs, does that end up indicating to residents on those roads that, the town will come in and they'll take care of these potholes, but they won't ever do the real serious infrastructure that is needed to long-term, just like what you were talking about last meeting, where, here's Howard Avenue. Well, it's like, really, the problem starts up here, and you have to watch where the water goes and where does it end up. So it's not, I don't want to see it become a Band-Aid, but I think that if it could be built in, something that says, okay, we'll do this Band-Aid, we're more than willing to do this Band-Aid. We also need to see something happen within a certain period of time that is more substantial, and, more along the lines of, what the longer-term package is.
Yeah, I know in Marshfield it's worthwhile. It's roughly the appropriation is $100,000 per year, and it's under the direction of the DPW superintendent. And then, as I see, if they need to go do an emergency repair that they see is fit from their own, because of the trash trucks or buses are out there, and they see a problem, but maybe there should be some language in that says, if we do our small investment,
Right.
you need to do your
Yep.
long-term investment fall over so many years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's getting that point
Yeah, MJ?
well made. Oh,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, but
Yeah,
you can speak.
I didn't see your hand.
Yeah, it's
My
all right.
peripheral
Yeah,
vision
it's fine.
isn't that good.
So, George has actually been involved in this because the Private Roads Acceptance Committee, that's now the Road Acceptance Advisory Committee or something, has been working on this off and on, and it's been a while since they did anything. One of the first big challenges was getting a list of accepted roads and unaccepted roads and having that published so people can go to the website and say, oh, I live on an unaccepted road. You can't distinguish now. And a lot of people didn't even know. There's a lot of information out for different towns that handle it in different ways. Because especially on the Cape, Plymouth, South Shore, Duxbury, Marshfield, and one of the things you have to deal with is some people want their road accepted, but some people don't want their road accepted. And so there can be minor repairs, for these specific things, not including this. You can be specific about your language.
Right.
Then you can have the cash deposit thing, I think, is very helpful that we've implemented for Howard Ave, because it's not a betterment process. It's not going to town meeting. Yes, they do have to get 51% of the people to sign, but this gives you a little bit more leeway because it limits the liability of the town, and we don't have that in a bylaw. So my suggestion is we kind of take this and say, we need to do something like this. This is a good template to start with. Put it back to that committee to work with Tim Lyden, and he's on staff on there, to kind of get it going and work through some of it, because it's going to take some policy language and discussion about, and making it simple. George said this to me one time, if you want to go for road acceptance, don't make people go out and get 51% of signatures and do this, and then make them go back out and get 75% of signatures that say we want to get road acceptance. Find a way to incorporate it, and not that they're guaranteed acceptance, but their application becomes a petition for acceptance to go through the petition for acceptance committee. And if you get the process right, and you sort of do it where it's explained pretty well. Gloucester has a good explanation of how they do it, and what's eligible for this kind of thing. Anyway, I think it's not something the Board of Selectmen's going to be able to do in a whole meeting, but I think putting it back to that committee that's been working on it with, and I think DPW's on there?
Yes.
Yeah, planning,
Yeah.
DPW,
Mhm.
Selectmen non-voting, so, yeah.
I can
breakdown, but something's gotta be done. It's just, the thing is, I like the, we'll call it the Marshfield plan, because, I know it's got, Sean Patterson's, footprints all over it. But, my only concern is having something like this, if we put money into the budget, all of a sudden, you get people who are gonna be salivating all over town.
So they don't have to pay
thinking,
for it.
and that's the problem. It's gonna cause wonderful feelings of the people who are the first to get serviced, and then it's gonna be just bitterness. But it does, at least it heightens the awareness, because there is different ways to solve this. But I am gonna probably make this one of my goals, whether it gets accepted again or not, but what MJ just mentioned about folding the acceptance process into, the road repair into an eventual acceptance. And there is no guarantee, but as long as I think town meeting understands that this is pretty much a pass-through, at least for several years. And, it's kind of kicking the can down the street, but it's at least the cash flow is not affected, won't affect the town for several years. And if I think it was mentioned that if there is an association that takes care of the road, like sealing cracks and things like that, that will extend the life of a road quite a bit. I mean, nobody likes looking at the two-tone streets, but it does make a difference. And I just want to say, it's not, nirvana, when this happens, that if this does happen, it will make some people happy, but make some people more irate. And I would just like to see as many solutions as we can. And back to Howard Avenue, it's not just the road itself, but I think it's becoming a health issue too, because you got standing water for that longer period of time during the summer months. Nothing good's going to come of it. Anyway, thank you.
No, if I could, so the last time with the roadway acceptance committee was together, we did talk about having environmental partners. They do our pavement management system right now for the town. Again, Tony said about 50% of our roads are private ways. I think, I can't remember the exact number, it's less than $30,000 that we pay them to do 50% of our roads. We haven't got a cost estimate from them, but we talked about going to town meeting and asking for a capital project to do the private roads, the private ways. And that would at least give the board an idea of the liability that's out there to you, what the cost could be. And they would even come up with a dollar value with each year that you should be putting into a fund to bring them up to a standard that you want to see. So I think that might be the first step you really want to go with. This might be the second step that you want to have here, but maybe this is something that goes back to the committee and have them work on it in some criteria a little bit more than what's here right now. Because, I think you have to be careful about fixing up folks, their roads, and they never step up to the plate themselves to fix it either. So I think maybe that would be the best thing we could do right now, Peter.
Oh, yeah.
Especially right now, if there isn't a champion to move this forward.
The people will come out of the woodwork, This
Yeah.
has been something that's been sitting back for a while, but I think it's a start. And yes, we need to look at criteria for it, instead of first come, first serve, because I was using it more as a tool for DPW to do an emergency repair they feel is deemed necessary, so they can go and do it instead of waiting for the neighbors to come up with a cash deposit, or they gotta, go through the 51%. This way, in an emergency, if something is deemed, a safety issue, they just go and do it, and then so it's done. But it's not like something that's been there forever and ever. But I think through the road acceptance committee, and we need to expand off of this discussion. Yeah, and define criteria, so it doesn't end up being a first come, first serve, and then the money's gone. Yeah, it's a privilege. Yeah.
Yeah, I know Tony's alluded to it too, but it's just the fact that, once, it's like a capital investment of a company. Once other people see a company's making capital investments, it kind of says, wow, this company is going places because they are thinking of the future. And it's just, I think places in certain neighborhoods, it's a matter of pride. If something like that were to be just the catalyst to make things happen. All of a sudden, people say, but people have to step forward themselves to some extent too. They have to say, okay, this is my neighborhood, it's an unaccepted road, and I own halfway to the center line in most cases, and we've got to participate in this, make it happen. But,
Well, I think at this point, we don't even need to take any action, but I think that we know what the next step is to go back to the proper committee for this and, and just finish what you started. And as part of it, given some, we can get some more information to make this a better proposal going forward, because we can bring it to town meeting, but we'll get laughed right off the stage, because there'll be people out there that, they're shepherds of the town's money and stuff, so it's the way it is. But it's definitely, yes.
So I think the private, roadway acceptance committee, I think it has a vacancy, and I don't think it's met since 2019, so I think we should maybe advertise the vacancy, look for someone, and get who's ever supposed to be calling that meeting. I don't even think we reappointed the people that were, I think the appointments expired 2021, so we might want to put that on our list to actually get that reactivated. I think I got appointed as the chair, as the selectman representative, but I think that the other things expired 2021, so we should just look at that. If we're gonna refer something to them, they should actually be an active committee.
That's right, that would help.
No, we
Sounds
hit
good.
policies and procedures. I think at this point,
Retreat.
it's 10:10. Well, maybe what the board can think about, you have a list of policies here that we have. For the next workshop, what you can do is look through these policies and see which ones you want to bring forward that need, for changes, amendments, et cetera, and then based on what's down below, and now I have on discussion a possible budget subcommittee and policy subcommittee. And I was thinking is if we do want to go forward with having these subcommittees, the policies that the board feels would need some finessing and review, ship it off to the policy subcommittee, and then they can bring their recommendations to the board when they feel fit, when they're done with it, and the whole board will vote based on their recommendations. So if people want to look, as far as the budget subcommittee goes, the reason why I brought this up is I saw in the school committee that the budget and facility subcommittee meets throughout the year, so there's always dialogue over what budget the actuals, what's going on, and so instead of meeting twice a year with the finance committee, for a special town meeting and for annual town meeting, it's ongoing. So I guess keeps the budget and the budget conversation fluid going throughout the year, and so maybe at the next workshop, two things. A, the board can send to Tony what policies they feel that that we should review again, for possible amendments. And B, if anybody wants to serve on a policy subcommittee or a budget subcommittee, send those to me, and so we can see if we have enough people interested in doing both. And then we'll go from there, because we have a lot on our plate, and by having these little subcommittees, it will spread the work out a little bit. Judy?
Couple thoughts. I know I've been racking my brain as to who told me this, but there is there are people who will go through policies and help, as a contractor, to just kind of clean up some of the stuff. There are a lot of policies and there are a lot of details, and so, that could also be part of the mix.
Yep.
So that we could be all working at the same time, because it's pretty daunting.
Okay.
So, and then my thought about the budget subcommittee, we are the budget subcommittee, and I think that, part of what has been identified, that Tony's been trying to push through, is having more conversations and more updates at our board meetings, so that, there's not like a working group over here, but we're always up to speed. And I I think I don't know, I wouldn't be in support of a budget subcommittee unless I'm not really understanding the situation. We have a finance committee. We are the people responsible for the, overseeing the budget, so maybe we need to have more conversation here. So,
Well, Jim always, I remember former Selectman Potter saying that we're not involved much with the budget per se, that we always would default to the finance committee. It was just my way of just keeping the selectmen involved in the conversation.
yeah,
That's
I mean, I think it'd be great for all of us to be involved in the conversation more. So.
But, I don't know, we'll leave that discussion for another, for another day.
Maybe for the retreat if there's
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
To whether to do some of those things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Roles and responsibilities, it fits under roles and responsibilities and how we do them.
Add that to the list.
Correspondences?
Want to hear them?
Yeah.
Distilled as much as possible? Okay, letters from Don Picard, with interest in serving on the Capital Outlay Committee as an at-large appointee. Cheryl McCown, spelled Keown, with interest in serving on the Selectmen's Energy Advisory Committee. Letter from Division of Marine Fisheries about shellfish closures at Little Bay, Squatigue Harbor, both beginning on July 1st. And one ends on October 1st and the other ends on September 30th. I don't know why that is, but anyway, just want to bring that to everybody's attention. I actually read it. Upper Cape Tech School Committee, District School Committee minutes from June meeting. Department of Environmental Protection about number one, a notice of draft expanded site inspection report, and number two, chemical spill number 23. Tech Associates Consulting Engineers with the 2021 to 25 Vegetation Management Plan. And finally, Xfinity regarding customers' rate adjustments due to COVID-related sports network fee recoveries. In other words, the sports
Yeah.
programs that were not aired
Yeah.
for obvious reasons. And that concludes correspondence.
Any questions or discussion on correspondences? Seeing none. Selectmen committee reports. We'll go down the room. MJ?
Haven't had any committee.
No.
All right. George?
This is a good thing to add on. I realize it takes a little time sometimes, and we don't want to get too verbose, but to tell you the truth, I didn't see this coming, and I think this is going to be part of our regular meetings now.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So I'm just going to pass on this tonight.
All right. I forward you emails, of different information that we have with our wastewater and our police committee, so I have sent that stuff out. So if anybody wants any follow-up on what I sent out, just get back to me. But one of the things that is coming up is National Night Out will be the first Tuesday in August at 6 to 8 at Buzzards Bay Park. Will be the first time we've done it over there, and I'm excited for it. And I want to thank the board for allowing us to meet on Monday night for our monthly meeting, so we can have the option of attending the National Night Out. So I want to thank the board for that. And as part of the National Night Out, there's a possibility of an open house being discussed for the new police station. I sent that out to you all earlier. And so we'll see what Charlie Noyes and that committee decides. But I think I would be excited if there was a possibility of having an open tour of the new police station. I think it's long overdue. And once we get our boo-boos and concerns met, I think it's a project that we will be proud of. Judy?
Well, Cape Cod Metropolitan Planning Organization hasn't met, so I have nothing to report. There we go.
And Mr. Jared?
I don't have any report because I haven't had any.
How about Bullet?
He's good.
Okay. So with that in mind, if there's no other business before the board, there's a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So second?
Seconded?
No discussion, all in favor? Aye. It's unanimous. Thank you.